The forgotten night. The night was cold. The kind of cold that bit into the skin and made every breath sting like ice. The streets were empty. The lamps flickered weak yellow light, and the city slept, but in one forgotten alley. Something moved, something broken, something lost. She opened her eyes slowly. Her head heavy as if it carried the weight of 1,000 stones. Pain rushed through her body, sharp and burning. Like fire crawling under her skin, she gasped. But no sound came, only a faint whisper. Like the cry of someone who had forgotten how to speak, her mind was blank, completely blank. There was no name, no memory, no picture of who she was. The last thing she felt was a crash metal screaming. Fire tearing through the arand, then darkness. Now, here she was, lying on the dirty ground. The smell of rot and smoke around her. Shadows moved, and she panicked, her body trembling. Glowing eyes surrounded her. But they were not human, eh? Pack of stray dogs stood in the alley, their teeth bare, their breath misting in the cold. For a moment, she thought they would rip her apart, finish what the accident had started. But instead, the dogs did something strange. They circled her, sniffing, growling low, and then sat near her. One of them, an old black dog with scars across its face, lay down beside her, pressing its warm body against her shivering frame. Another dropped a half-eaten piece of bread near her hand, as if offering it. Her heart pounded. Confused, terrified, yet a strange warmth began to spread. The dogs did not see her as an enemy. Not as prey, they accepted her as if she was one of their own. For the first time since the crash, she did not feel alone. She tried to speak, but no words came, only broken sounds. The dogs tilted their heads, listening, but they did not leave. They stayed, guarding her as the night stretched. Long hours passed, and hunger gnawed at her stomach like claws. She picked up the bread with shaking fingers, sniffed it, and forced herself to eat. It tasted bitter, dirty, but it gave her strength. The dogs watched, silent, as if they knew she was learning their way survival. Every corner of her mind searched for answers. Who was she? Why was she here? Where had she come from? But all she found was emptiness. Her own reflection in a puddle showed a face covered in dirt, a bruise on her cheek, and eyes wide with fear. But she did not recognize that face. It was like staring at a stranger. The night deepened, and danger crept closer. A drunk man staggered into the alley, muttering, his steps heavy. He froze when he saw her lying with the dogs. What is this? A beast woman. He laughed, the smell of alcohol rolling off him. He reached for her arm, but the dog sprang forward with a fury. Teeth flashed, growls turned into roars, and the man stumbled back, cursing as he fled. She stared at the dogs in disbelief. Would they protect her? The scarred black dog returned to her side, nudging her gently. Tears filled her eyes, though she did not know why. She was nothing, no name, no past, no home, yet these creatures had chosen her. In that moment, she felt a spark, a reason to live another night. She curled against the warmth of the dogs. Listening to their breathing above her, the city lights flickered. Somewhere, people slept in safe houses, loved ones beside them, but she had only the dogs, and somehow, that was enough. Still, at the edge of her broken memory, something flickered. A voice, faint but real, whispering her name, though she could not catch the sound. A scream, a crash, and then silence. Her body shivered as if the memory was trying to return, but slipped away into darkness. The night stretched on, endless and cruel. But as the first rays of dawn touched the sky, she rose slowly to her feet. The dogs rose with her, their tails low, their eyes fixed on her. They were waiting. As if she was their leader now. She did not know why, but she felt it. She belonged with them. At least for now. She wrapped her arms around herself, trembling but determined. She would survive this night and the next, even without a name, even without a past. She would learn to live in the shadows, with the only family she had left. The stray dogs of the forgotten night and far away. Unseen eyes watched her from the darkness. Someone knew who she was. Someone was waiting for the right moment to comfort her. But for now, she was just a lost girl with no memory, a ghost among. The streets and her story had only just begun. The life with dogs' morning light crawled slowly across the broken city. Painting the streets in pale gold, shadows shrank back. And the night's chill gave way to the noise of a world waking up. But she did not feel the warmth of the sun, nor the comfort of the day. Her stomach growled, her lips were cracked, and her mind was still a blank page, empty and cruel. She walked through the streets barefoot, the dogs following her like silent guards. People turned their heads when they saw her, whispering in disgust, "There goes the mad girl again." "The one who lives with beasts," one woman muttered, pulling her child closer. "She's cursed." A man spat, not human anymore. Their words cut like knives, but she could not answer because she had no name, no voice to defend herself. She lowered her eyes and kept walking. Every step felt heavy, but the dogs stayed with her. Pushing her forward, an old brown dog led the way, nose sniffing for scraps of food. A thin white dog darted ahead, chasing crows away from a pile of trash. The scarred black dog remained closest to her side, his eyes always watching for danger. She copied them, learned from them when they dug into bins. She dug too, when they fought over bones. She waited for what was left. The food was foul, sour, but it kept her alive. Slowly, she began to move like them, her body crouched low, her steps quick, her ears sharp for every sound. She was no longer a stranger to their world. She was becoming one of them. At night, she curled on the ground. Beside them, sharing warmth, she felt their breathing against her skin, the steady beat of life beside her. Sometimes, when she closed her eyes, she thought she saw a different life. A room with soft light, a voice calling her with love, a bed where she once slept. But when she opened her eyes, there was only dirt, cold stone, and the dogs, still. She was not alone, and in her silence, she began to believe that maybe this was her fate. To forget who she was, and to live as half-human, half-beast. One day, as she sat near a broken fountain, washing her face with dirty water, a group of boys threw stones at her. "Get away, dog woman!" They shouted, laughing. One stone cut her forehead, blood dripping into her eyes. The dogs roared in anger, chasing the boys until they scattered in fear. She sat trembling, holding her bleeding head, tears mixing with the blood. Why did they hate her? She had harmed no one. She had taken nothing. But no answer came, only the sharp pain of being unwanted that night. She pressed her face into the scarred black dog's fur. He did not speak, but his warmth said everything. You are not alone. Days passed into weeks, and though hunger never left her, she grew stronger. Her body toughened, her legs faster, her eyes sharper. She could run like the dogs, jump like them, vanish into shadows when danger came. The city called her the stray girl, a ghost that haunted the streets, but inside, a small flame of strength had started to burn. She had survived what should have killed her, and survival was a kind of power. Yet sometimes, in the quiet hours, she wondered about the truth. Was there a family searching for her? Was there someone waiting, calling her name in the dark? Or had she been abandoned, left to die with the dogs, forgotten by the world? The not knowing hurt more than the hunger, more than the cold. One evening, as the sky turned red with sunset, she followed the dogs to the edge of the market. The smell of roasted meat drifted through the air, making her dizzy. The dogs barked low. Hungry but cautious, she crept closer, her heart pounding. The stall owner spotted her and cursed, swinging a stick. "Get away, filthy creature. You and your beasts don't belong here." He struck at her, the stick burning against her arm. She fell back, clutching herself, the dog snarling but afraid to charge. The man shouted until she ran, tears streaming down her face. That night, she lay under the broken sky, her body shaking. With pain and anger, the dogs pressed close to her. But she stared upward, eyes burning. Something inside her screamed, "I am not nothing. I was someone once." She could not remember who. But she knew deep in her bones that she had mattered to someone, somewhere, and then it happened as she drifted into uneasy sleep. A dream came, sharper than before. She saw fire, heard metal, screaming, and felt arms around her, pulling her close. A voice cried her name. Though she could not catch it, only the sound of love breaking into fear. She woke with a gasp, her heart racing, her body trembling. The dogs barked softly, confused. By her sudden cry, she pressed her hands to her chest, whispering broken sounds. The dream was not just a dream, was a memory. Her past was still inside her, buried under pain, waiting to rise. And in that moment, she realized something terrifying. If her past was still there, then someone from that past might come looking for her. But would they come to save her, or to destroy her? The night fell heavy again, the dogs curling around her. But now, her eyes did not close easily. Somewhere in the city, someone was searching. And soon, her life with the dogs would no longer be enough. Her story was only beginning. And the forgotten girl of the streets was about to be found. The stranger's eyes. The city was busy that day. Streets crowded with merchants, carts, and people shouting over one another. She stood at the edge of it all, hidden in shadows. Her dogs pressed close around her. The smell of food twisted her. Empty stomach, but she knew better than to step into the open. Every time she tried, people screamed, threw stones, or chased her away like a monster. Her lips were dry, her body weak. Yet her eyes searched every corner for scraps. The white dog darted into the market and returned with a fish, head in its mouth, tail wagging proudly. She smiled faintly, stroking its fur, a fragile happiness flickering inside her. But the peace did not last. A group of men noticed her hiding by the wall. "There she is, the dog woman," one of them shouted. "Crazy beast, look at her eyes. She's not normal." Another spat. They picked up stones, stepping closer, laughing cruelly. Her heart pounded, her hands shook. She wanted to run, but her legs refused to move. The first stone flew, striking the ground near her feet. The dogs growled, stepping forward. Another stone hit her arm, making her cry out. Fear burned in her chest. But then, something happened. A voice cut through the noise, strong and sharp. "Enough." The men froze, turning to look. A tall figure stood at the edge of the crowd. A man. He wore a worn coat, dust clinging to his boots, his hands calloused from work. But it wasn't his clothes that silenced them. It was his eyes. His gaze was steady, burning with something the others did not have. Not fear, not hate, something else. He stepped between her and the men, his shoulders firm. "Throw one more stone," he said, his voice low and dangerous. "Then try me." The men hesitated, muttering under their breath. One of them spat on the ground and walked away. The others followed, grumbling. But none dared to stay. Silence fell, the market noise returning slowly in the background. She stared at the man, her heart beating fast. Why had he stopped them? No one had ever stood for her before, not once. The dogs studied him too. Ears raised, bodies tense. The scarred black dog gave a warning growl, but did not attack. The man crouched down, lowering himself to her level. "I won't hurt you," he said softly. His voice was calm, warm, unlike the harsh voices she was used to. He reached into his coat and pulled out a piece of bread. Fresh and soft, he held it out with an open hand, not pushing, only offering. She froze, her body trembling. Was this a trick? Her eyes flicked between his face and the bread. The smell made her stomach twist with hunger. The scarred black dog sniffed the air, growled low, then sat back as if giving her permission. Slowly, shaking, she reached out, her fingers brushing the bread. The man did not move, did not flinch. She grabbed it and pulled it close, eating quickly. Tears burned her eyes. It had been so long since she tasted real food. The man watched her quietly. Not with disgust, not with pity, but with something different, something she did not understand. "You don't belong on these streets," he said gently. "You've been hurt, haven't you?" She opened her mouth, trying to speak. Only broken sounds came out, whispers without words. Her throat closed, her eyes filled. The man didn't laugh, didn't call her mad. Instead, he nodded, as if he understood her silence. "All right," he said softly. "You don't have to talk." Not yet. He stood and took a step back, giving her space, but then he looked at her again. His gaze steady. "My name is Daniel," he said, his voice firm. "I don't know who you are, but I know you're not an animal." Her heart skipped. The name echoing in her mind, Daniel, a name she could hold on to. A name that felt real in a world of emptiness for the first time in so long. She felt something stir inside her, not fear, not despair, but hope, a fragile, trembling hope. The dogs watched closely as Daniel stood and turned. Walking a few steps away, he did not chase her, did not force her to follow. He only looked back once, his eyes meeting hers. "If you need food, or a place to rest," he said, "my door is open," and then he left, his figure fading into the crowd. She sat frozen, the bread still warm in her hands, her heart raced, her breath shallow. No one had ever offered her kindness before. No. One had looked into her eyes without hate, but this man had, as night fell. She curled with the dogs again, but her thoughts would not let her sleep. The sound of his voice replayed in her mind. The way his eyes had seen her not as a monster, not as broken, but as human. For the first time, she wondered. Maybe her life was not meant to end in the alleys. Maybe she was not meant to be forgotten. And as the moonlight fell over her and the dogs, she whispered a broken sound into the night. It was not a word, not yet, but in her heart, it felt like the beginning of one. A shelter of warmth rain poured heavily that night, turning the alleys into rivers of mud. The girl sat curled against the wall. The dogs pressed around her, their fur soaked, their bodies shivering. The water dripped from her hair. Her clothes clung to her skin, and her teeth chattered from the cold. Her body was weak, hunger pulling at her stomach, and her head ached from the fever that had begun to burn inside her. The dogs whined, licking her hands as if to keep her awake. But her eyes closed, heavy with exhaustion. She felt herself slipping into the darkness, when suddenly, footsteps echoed nearby. A voice broke through the storm, steady and familiar. "Hey." Her eyes flicked open, blurry, but she recognized him, Daniel. He stood in the rain, holding an umbrella, his coat drenched. He crouched down, concern written across his face. "You'll die out here," he said firmly, his voice louder than the storm. "Come with me," she trembled, her lips parting, but no words came. The dogs barked low, unsure, their eyes fixed on him. Daniel did not flinch, did not show fear. Instead, he lowered the umbrella, letting the rain soak him too. "I don't care if you trust me or not," he said softly, "but if you stay here, you won't see tomorrow." Her body shook harder, torn between fear and a strange pull toward his voice. Daniel extended his hand, palm open, waiting, not forcing. The scarred black dog growled, stepping forward, but then looked at her. It was as if even he knew the man meant no harm. With trembling fingers, she reached out. Her hand touched his, weak and cold. Daniel wrapped his hand around hers gently, pulling her up. Good, he said, steadying her against the rain. Let's get you out of this. He led her through the streets, the dogs following like shadows. Finally, they stopped at a small, worn-down house at the edge of town. Daniel pushed the door open and guided her. Inside, the warmth of the room hit her instantly, the crackle of fire in the hearth. The smell of soup cooking. Her body almost collapsed from the sudden comfort. Sit, Daniel said, helping her onto a chair. She looked around with wide eyes. The place simple, but alive. Wooden shelves lined with old books, tools scattered on the table. A blanket folded neatly on the couch. It felt safe, safer than anywhere she had been since the accident. The dogs settled by the door. Shaking water from their fur, Daniel brought a towel and gently draped it over her shoulders. She flinched at the touch, but he only smiled. You're freezing, he said. Warm yourself by the fire. She sat stiffly, staring at the flames. Her hands trembled as she held the towel close. The heat slowly melted the ice in her bones. But inside, she still shivered with confusion. Why was he doing this? Why help a stranger everyone else called a beast? Daniel placed a bowl of soup in front of her. Steam rising, she stared at it, unsure. Go on, he encouraged. It's just food. No tricks. Her stomach twisted, the smell pulling her forward. She grabbed the spoon with shaking hands and took a sip. The warmth flooded through her, tears filling her eyes. It was the first real meal she had eaten in what felt like forever. Daniel watched quietly, not judging, not rushing. When she finally looked up, their eyes met. And in his gaze, she saw something she had not seen since the accident: kindness. It was almost too much to bear. Her lips moved, trying to form words, but only broken sounds came. Daniel leaned forward slightly, his tone gentle. You don't have to speak. Not now, he paused, then added, but you will, one day. I know you will. Her chest tightened, emotions swirling like storm clouds. She wanted to believe him, but fear held her back. What if he discovered who she really was? What if her past brought danger to his door? A sudden flash struck her mind. Fire, screams, a ship tearing apart. She gasped, clutching her head. The spoon clattered to the floor. Daniel rushed forward, steadying her shoulders. Hey, you're okay. Breathe, he said firmly. Her body shook as fragments of memory slipped through her mind. A name almost clear, but gone before she could catch it. Tears streamed down her face. Daniel didn't let go. His grip, firm yet gentle. You're safe here, he whispered. Whatever it is. It can't hurt you now. She looked at him through wet eyes, her heart pounding. Something inside her whispered that maybe, just maybe, this man was telling the truth. For the first time since the accident, she felt like she wasn't drowning. In the darkness, she felt the faintest spark of life again. The rain outside beat against the roof, the storm still raging, but inside? With the fire's glow and Daniel's steady presence, she felt warmth. A warmth not just of the room, but of something deeper. A warmth she had thought she would never feel again. And as the dogs curled at the door, keeping watch, she realized she had stepped into something dangerous and beautiful, for warmth meant safety. But it also meant she had something to lose again. Shadows of the past days passed, and the girl began to grow stronger inside Daniel's home. The fever left her body, and the color slowly returned to her cheeks. She still did not speak words, but she had learned to answer with her eyes. With small nods, with faint smiles, and every night, the dogs slept by the door, guarding both her and Daniel as though they knew she finally had something worth protecting. Daniel never pressed her with questions. He never asked her name, never demanded her past, but sometimes, when she stared too long into the fire with trembling eyes, he would simply say, "He will come back when you're ready." And that was enough to quiet her fear for the moment. Yet the past was not gone. It lingered in fragments, haunting her dreams. Each night, she saw flashes fire ripping across the sky, metal twisting, voices screaming, and always a name whispered, but too faint for her to hold on to. She woke with a start, her hands clawing at the blanket, her breath shaking. Daniel would be there, steadying her, whispering, "You're safe." It's just a dream, but deep inside, she knew it was not just a dream, it was memory. Broken and sharp like shattered glass, her past was chasing her, even if she could not yet see its face. One morning, Daniel went into town to buy food, leaving her by the fire. The dogs lay scattered across the floor, their tails twitching in sleep. She was staring at the window when movement caught her eye. A shadow slipped between the houses, lingering too long before vanishing. Her heart tightened, a coldness creeping over her skin. It felt like eyes were watching, unseen but heavy. That night, she dreamed again. This time, clearer, she saw herself strapped into a chair. Lights flashing, voices shouting, a crash, alarms screaming. Then darkness. She woke with a cry, tears on her face. The dogs barked in alarm. Daniel, rushing from his room, he knelt beside her, holding her trembling hands. "What did you see?" he asked gently. She tried to answer, but only broken sounds left her lips. Her frustration grew, her fists hitting the blanket. Daniel caught her hands and whispered, "It's all right. Don't force it. We'll figure it out together." But outside the window, far from their warmth, someone was indeed watching. A man cloaked in dark clothes leaned against the wall, eyes sharp. "She's alive," he muttered into a small device. "After the accident, she's with a human now. We'll take her back soon." The next day, the market was restless. Daniel noticed at first the way strangers asked questions, the way whispers followed him as he bought bread. "Have you seen a strange woman around?" one merchant asked. "Another word is, she's dangerous. They say she survived something she wasn't meant to." Daniel kept his face calm, but his hands clenched at his sides. He hurried home, his heart racing. When he entered the house, she looked up at him. With wide, questioning eyes, he smiled faintly, but inside he carried the weight of fear. The world had noticed her, her peace was cracking, and Daniel knew they would come soon. That evening, he sat by the fire while she rested. The dogs at her feet. "Listen," he said softly, knowing she might not understand every word, but speaking. "Anyway, there are people looking for you." Her body stiffened, her breath quick. "I don't know who they are yet, or what they want, but I promise you this." He reached out, gently brushing a strand of hair from her face. "They'll have to go through me first." Her eyes widened, shimmering with tears. She did not understand why this man, this stranger, would fight for her. But in his eyes, steady and unwavering, she saw truth. She lowered her head, pressing her forehead against his hand. No words were spoken, but the bond between them deepened. Outside, thunder rolled, though no storm followed. The shadows were gathering. Her past was no longer waiting in silence. It was coming closer, step by step, ready to tear away the fragile warmth she had found that night as she drifted to sleep. Against the glow of the fire, Daniel sat awake, his hand resting on a small knife at his side. He was no soldier, no hero, just a man who had seen too much loss already. But for her, for the broken girl who had survived with stray dogs and no memory, he was ready to stand against anything. And beyond the hills, under the cover of night, a group of cloaked figures moved silently toward the town the hunt had begun, and soon, the shadows of her past would step into the light. The choice of the night was too quiet. Even the dogs felt it, tears raised, bodies stiff, growls low in their throats. The girl sat near the fire, hugging her knees, her eyes flicking to the door again and again. She felt it too, a weight in the air, as if danger was pressing closer with every heartbeat. Daniel stood by the window, the knife in his hand, his jaw tight. He had lived many lonely years, but he had never felt this kind of fear, not for himself, but for her. She knows. He thought, watching her trembling hands, she feels them coming too. Then it happened, a knock, slow, heavy. Echoing through the small house, the dogs erupted into snarls, their teeth flashing, claws scraping against the wood. The girl's heart slammed in her chest, her body shaking. Daniel stepped forward, voice steady, though his hand trembled. "Who's there?" No answer, only another knock. Louder this time, shaking the door on its hinges. Daniel turned, meeting her frightened eyes. "Stay behind me," he whispered. The door burst open before he could move again. Figures in dark cloaks stormed inside, their eyes cold, their movements sharp. One of them pointed, voice cutting through the air. "There she is. Take her." The girl screamed, backing into the corner. The dogs leaped forward, snarling, biting, fighting with wild fury. Daniel charged, knife flashing, slashing at the first attacker. The man staggered back, blood streaking his arm, but more poured in, surrounding them. "Don't fight, human," one of them sneered, raising a weapon. "She's not yours. She belongs to us. Hand her over and live." Daniel's voice thundered in the small room. "She belongs to no one." He swung again, blocking their path. The girl crouched low, her breath ragged, her mind spinning. Flashes tore through her memory. She saw these cloaked figures before. She saw their ships, their cruel eyes, the fire, the crash. They had tried to end her life once. Now they had come to finish it. Her body shook, fear chaining her to the ground. But then her gaze fell on Daniel. He was bleeding, struggling against men stronger than him. Yet he did not back down. He fought not for himself, but for her. Her heart screamed inside, louder than her fear. "No," she thought. "I will not lose this. Not again." Something rose within her, a strength she didn't know she had. She grabbed a burning log from the fire, the heat searing her skin, and swung it with desperate force. The flame struck one attacker's cloak, igniting it. He shouted. Stumbling back, the fire spreading, the dogs attacked again, tearing into the chaos. Daniel slashed at another, driving him to the wall for a moment. The room was filled with fire, snarls and screams. The cloaked leader growled. "You can fight all you want, girl, but you cannot escape what you are." His hand reached for her, but she raised the burning log higher, her eyes blazing. "I don't belong to you," she whispered, the words broken but real. Daniel froze. Hearing her voice for the first time, it was faint, trembling, but it was hers. The men recoiled, stunned that she had spoken. The dogs roared louder, emboldened. The attackers retreated, dragging their wounded with them. "This isn't over." The leader snarled at Daniel. "She will come with us, willingly or not. She is ours by blood." And then they were gone, melting into the night. Leaving only the smell of smoke and blood, silence fell, broken only by the crackle of the dying fire. Daniel collapsed to his knees, his chest heaving, his arm bleeding. From a deep cut, the girl dropped the burning log and rushed to him, tears streaming. She touched his face with trembling hands, whispering brokenly, "No, no." He caught her hand, his voice weak but firm. "You spoke," he said with a faint smile. Her tears fell harder. He smiled again, despite the pain. "See? I told you. One day you would." She shook her head, pressing her forehead to his. The dogs gathered close, licking his wounds, whining softly. The warmth of the fire wrapped around them, but outside, the night felt colder than ever. She realized the truth. The shadows of her past were not going to stop. They would come again, stronger, and soon she would have to make a choice. Would she keep running, hiding in fear, dragging Daniel into danger? Or would she face what she was and fight for the life she had found? Her hands curled into fists, her eyes burning for the first time. She was not just the lost girl with no memory. She was someone who could choose, and in that moment, her heart knew what it wanted. She wanted Daniel, the dogs, the warmth of this fragile home, even if the whole world came to take it away. Outside, the cloaked men regrouped, their leader's voice cold. She has chosen the human. Then she will fall with him, but inside the small house, her choice was already made. She would not leave him, and together, they would face whatever came next. Life reborn, the fire in the small house had burned low, its glow casting long shadows across the floor. Daniel sat against the wall, his arm wrapped in cloth where blood had soaked through. The dogs lay close around him, their eyes watchful, their bodies tense even in rest. The girl sat at his side, her hand never leaving his, her eyes wide with fear and determination. For the first time, she had spoken. Just one broken sentence, "I don't belong to you," but it had been enough to drive the hunters back. The sound of her own voice still echoed in her ears. Fragile but alive, she touched her throat again and again. As if to prove it was real, Daniel gave her a faint smile through his pain. "You're stronger than you think," he whispered. Her eyes filled with tears, but she shook her head. She did not feel strong. She felt scared. Like a child trapped between two worlds, one that wanted to claim her, and one that offered her warmth. Days passed in silence. But the peace was thin, fragile. Daniel's wound healed slowly. Though he tried to act as if nothing was wrong, the girl helped him in every way she could, bringing water, feeding the dogs, keeping the fire alive. Her hands shook often, but each small act made her feel a little more human again. Yet outside, the shadows moved. Whispers in the market grew louder. "She's dangerous. She doesn't belong here." Strangers asked questions, and dark shapes lingered at the edge of town. The hunters had not given up. They were waiting for the right moment to strike. One evening, as the sun bled red across the horizon, she stood outside with the dogs. The wind was sharp, carrying strange voices in her mind. She closed her eyes and saw it again, flashes of her past. A ship breaking apart, people screaming, hands pulling her into safety, and then betrayal, a voice shouting. She was too dangerous to live. Her eyes snapped open, heart pounding. She remembered now the accident had not been fate. It had been an attempt to erase her, to bury her existence. Daniel stepped outside, his hand resting on her shoulder. "What did you see?" he asked gently. She looked at him, her lips trembling. With effort, she forced broken words out. "They tried to kill me," she whispered, her voice cracked but clear. Daniel's eyes hardened. "Then they won't stop until they finish it." That night, the attack came. The hunters surrounded the house, torches in hand, weapons glinting in the dark. Daniel stood at the door, knife in his hand, his body weak but his will unbroken. The dogs snarled, ready to fight. The girl stood trembling, but something inside her had changed. She was done running, done hiding. The leader of the hunters stepped forward, his voice cold. "Give her to us, human. She is ours by blood and by law. Stand aside, and we'll let you live." Daniel's voice thundered back. "She belongs to no one. Not you, not your laws. She chooses her own life." The hunters surged forward, and the fight began. Daniel swung his knife. The dogs lunged. Chaos filling the night. The girl stood frozen for a moment, fear clawing at her. But then, in the firelight, she saw Daniel fall to his knees, blood staining his shirt. Her heart broke, a scream tearing from her throat. No. It was not just a sound this time. It was her voice, strong, loud, filled with fury and life. The hunters froze, stunned. The dogs howled, their strength renewed by her cry. And she remembered everything. Her name, her family, the crash, the betrayal, But none of it mattered now, because she knew who she wanted to be. She grabbed a fallen staff from the ground, her hands steady now, with the dogs at her side. She charged into the fight. Her strikes were clumsy but fierce, her screams echoing through the night. The hunters, shocked by her fire, stumbled back. Daniel, bleeding but alive, pushed himself up and fought beside her. Together, they drove the shadows away. One by one, the hunters fell back into the dark. Their leader snarling, "This is not the end," he spat. "You may defy us now, but your blood will always betray you." And then they vanished, their shapes swallowed by the night. Silence fell again, broken only by her heavy breaths and the crackle of the fire. She dropped the staff, falling to her knees beside Daniel. Her hands shook as she pressed them to his wound, tears streaming down her face. "Don't leave," she whispered, her voice breaking but real. "You gave me life. I won't lose you." Daniel's weak smile lit the darkness. "You spoke again," he said softly. "You found your voice. Don't ever lose it." Her tears fell harder as she leaned against him. The dogs circled them, their bodies warm, their eyes watchful. The fire inside the house glowed bright again, not just in the hearth, but in their hearts. She knew now that her past did not define her. She had been broken, abandoned, nearly erased, but Daniel's love, the loyalty of the dogs, and her own choice had given her something new, a life reborn. As dawn broke across the horizon, light spilling over the land, she whispered her first clear words, steady and true. "My name is." And for the first time, she spoke it aloud, her identity reclaimed. Daniel smiled through his pain, holding her close. "Then welcome back," he whispered. "But remember, you don't have to be who you were. You can be whoever you choose to be now." And as the sun rose higher, warming the earth, she knew he was right. Her story was no longer about loss. It was about rebirth, about love, about finding life again in the most unexpected place. The girl who had once been nothing but a shadow in the streets was no more. She was alive, she was free, and beside Daniel. She had a future, together with him, with the dog she had finally found her home.